Hello, everybody. This is Leadership Training, Friday Leadership Training with JJ Hardy. And Hannah's here as my guest again today. She's taking my course, but I own Victory Leadership Coaching, as if most people watching this don't already know. But I'm going to say it every time. I want to point out one thing before we truly get started with the call, and that's that I want to get as many people here as possible. So if you find value, let me know, and I will give you 2 free calls, which means access to those 2 calls for free. Anyway, I'm done selling that, but I'm going to do it one more time right before we leave the call, just because I got to do my due diligence. I want to be out there to benefit the entire civilian workforce. And so if I'm going to do that, I need participation. So I'm going to ask for participation. So let's do this. Let's go. Okay. So today we're going to talk about, it's this along the same vein as we talked about last week, where we were dealing with complications at work. But today we're going to talk about dealing with irate customers and employees. So what comes to mind with all of those things is irate is somebody who is upset, somebody who's potentially yelling, who has escalated a situation, whether it was necessary or not. And now it's time for you to deal with that. And so first we'll talk about with customers, dealing with irate customers. So if you're a service person and a customer is not happy with you, and you're going to hear me say the same thing about dealing with employees. As a leader, it is important that you do not rise to their level. This has to do with emotional intelligence. Okay. So understand that when you get upset, if you don't already know this, we all kind of do, but I have to bring awareness to it. You get that your chest starts to feel warm, and then it starts rising to your face. You got to be very careful with what you say when you start feeling that sensation, because you're going to start saying things that you don't mean. And if somebody on the other side of you is already upset, then rising to their level is only going to make the situation worse. And I'll be honest with you, if you're in an environment where you can just let them say what they have to say while you are calm as a cucumber, what usually happens in my experience, okay, is that person will realize that they are unnecessarily, going off. And they will, because they're going to look at you and they're going to be like, why is this person not upset? And once they realize that they're the only one there who's angry, either A, it'll make them more angry, or B, they'll get really confused and calm for a second, and they'll start talking to you like a human being. And that's when I would engage. And I would not engage at a high level. I would engage. Oh, I'm so sorry. I would engage at a level where you are still calm, and you're talking to that person in a way that would allow them to continue to de-escalate internally. Obviously, if you understand where you are emotionally and you can keep that down, then you're not the problem in this situation. And that's not something you need to bring to their attention, but now you need to let them bring themselves down as well. And that might take time. So and that works the same when you're dealing with a customer. And obviously, with a customer, sometimes you got to be a little bit more apologetic. If you're dealing with an employee, you need to let them know that that's inappropriate, but you got to wait till they're completely calm, because letting them know that what they're doing was inappropriate is only going to make the situation worse. So with an employee, hopefully that answers the questions that you had about a customer there, Hannah. But I think you might be frozen. Anyway, so when you're dealing with an employee, there are some other things that you have to do, especially if you are in the work environment. Say you're on a sales floor, or say you're not sure who that is on Facebook, but they said, "Hi, JJ, and I appreciate you, so I'm going to say hi real quick." But if they're on a sales floor or somewhere where there are a lot of other people, the first thing you have to do, and don't do it abruptly, but just mention to them, "I want to continue this conversation and I want to let you tell me what your concern is, but we need to do this in a place that is more appropriate." Doing that out in public, especially with an employee, that's just going to cause complications. And it's not necessarily, well, it could cause complications with your other employees as well, but the bigger problem that it's going to cause is with the workplace reputation, especially if customers come in and out of that. And we lost Hannah. Her internet just went out. Hopefully she's still watching. Anyway, but when you're dealing with irate people, the biggest thing that comes to mind is, as I said in the beginning of the call, is emotional intelligence. You need to make sure that you do not rise to their level, because if you do, you're going to make it worse. Have you ever been at home? Well, if you're married, okay, I guarantee there's a time when your spouse, whether that spouse is a man or a woman, doesn't matter, they got really upset with you about something. And when they said something to you, you got really upset with them back. Oftentimes, when somebody gets upset, that is just typically a sign that they are frustrated about something and they need to get it off their chest. They might not be upset with you, right? But they are upset with the situation. I've been guilty of this more at home than I have been at work. But I will engage in that situation, and I will get upset because it's my spouse and something she said upset me, so I'm upset now too. And after it's all said and done, all you've done is take that emotional bucket and dump some of that water out. Because when you're trying to build trust with your customer or your employee, and you are just willing to argue with them, we all talk about this emotional piggy bank. And when you fill that piggy bank up by giving to another person instead of taking from it, then you're more likely to build a relationship that's positive, and it's based on trust. But if you argue with that person, that is taking away from that. They know that you're going to argue with them. And if you're trying to build a work environment where you're building influence, and you want to be approachable, and you want people to talk to you, and you're trying to have regular communication and all of those other things that I talk about on a regular basis, and you want to have the mentality to serve, how are you serving another person by arguing with them? Well, you're not. And again, I'm a human being, and I've been guilty of this too. Not as much at work as at home. More emotions fly at home because it's home. And when you live with other people, you see them all the time, and so on and so forth, all the way on down the line. But when you're at work, it's an environment that's based on trust and professionalism. And if you violate that trust and you are unprofessional in that environment, the phrase that comes to mind is you're combat ineffective. And if you're combat ineffective, then you should not be a supervisor, a manager, a director. Maybe you shouldn't own that business. And if you do, maybe you should run it yourself, because you have no business managing other people. And that's a hard pill to swallow. But you have to be able to keep calm in the storm, because it's a very high likelihood that other people will not. There will be situations that pop up that require you to be calm so that other situations can be deconflicted and resolved. And as a leader, that is our duty. That is our responsibility. And I talk about ownership a lot, but it's your, if you're taking responsibility of everything within your sphere of influence, then own that situation. Whatever opinion you have while somebody else is upset needs to be tamped down, and you need to wait until they've calmed down. And then you need to convey your message in a way that's going to help that situation stay at a lower level. And that's not saying that you need to say stuff to that person that they want to hear. If they were inappropriate, you need to let them know that they were inappropriate, but you don't need to be disrespectful. And when it comes to dealing with irate customers and employees, because it's the same thing with a customer, you're going to lose. Because if you're a business person and you rise to the level of that customer when they're upset, and you don't help them solve the problem, then you're going to lose that customer, and you're going to lose that customer's friend, aunt, uncle, maybe some of their other business associates. And so it's a great financial decision for you to help resolve the problem instead of being part of the problem. I always tell my kids this: be part of the problem. Be part of the solution and not the problem. Be part of the solution and not the problem. And Hannah is back. Let's see if we can get her in here as soon as her camera pops up. But I'm going to stay live here for another couple minutes. And if you have any questions, please send them and put them in the comments here, because I would love to help you answer those. We just talked about a lot. Well, Hannah got kicked off, so I talked about a lot. But I'd be interested to hear any questions, comments, concerns, maybe maybe you want to add something to it. Hannah, you're here. So were you able to listen to that, or? Oh no.
Now I got kicked, and then I was trying to find it on Facebook and I couldn't find it on Facebook.
Oh no. Well, I should have taken a second and tagged that, because I knew you were saying stuff in the messenger. But we basically just talked about keeping calm in the situation. And I think the biggest takeaway is, as a leader, if you rise to somebody else's bad temper, then all you're going to do is make it worse. And it's our responsibility, especially if we're going to take ownership of everything within our sphere of influence at work or in our business, then making sure that we're calm and we're professional, and we keep the trust of the people that we work with, that we work for, and and that are working for us. And if we don't do that, then we're not doing what we're supposed to do, because our job is to solve problems. It's not to make problems worse. And we're not going to be able to retain people. Oh, are you still there?
Yes. It
Oh,
keeps freezing.
okay. Your internet's coming back in slowly, right?
I know.
Okay. But, that's basically it. And with customers, it's a little bit different,
Mhm.
because if we get upset with a customer, it's a poor financial decision. They're going to tell their friends, their parents, their cousins, their aunts and uncles, and they're gonna tell all people that they know in other businesses, and that's gonna take away a lot of your customers. Well, I repeated myself. I apologize, Hannah. I'm not sure if you're still
Yeah.
with us. Oh,
I don't know what's going on.
that's okay. Um, well, do you have any comments on any of that before we close it out, or did you want to say something?
Well, so it's like 5 minutes at the end of that section on the teaching about feedback and difficult conversations, and you make mention of the things that are left unsaid can be costly.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I fall, is because, like I mentioned last time, I just have a hard time talking to people like that. And because I don't like confrontation, trying to figure out what to say to somebody is hard for me. So, how do you deal with stuff like that? You just got to get out of your own head and do it?
Well, so check it out. We're not all going to be able to have every conversation. If you're uncomfortable with it and you don't feel like you have the ability to resolve that situation, sometimes it's best just to say, I'm sorry for what's going on right here. Would it be okay if we have another call and I um, bring in another expert on this
Mhm.
that might be able to help you better than I helped you? Because obviously I've upset you. And I don't know if that's cookie cutter for every situation, but sometimes even at work, I mean, if you're working for a company, it's best, instead of continuing to engage with somebody, getting a supervisor, a manager,
Mhm.
or another person within the organization involved, because obviously they're already upset with you, or something that you did, or maybe because you were standing there when they got upset.
Right.
They may not even, as far as customers are concerned, they may not de-escalate with you. So offering a conversation with somebody other than you
Mhm.
could be a great way. And by the way, using all the tools that you have is a great way to grow as a leader, because now you're going to watch how somebody else handles that situation.
Sure. Yeah.
There's never anything wrong with that. I think that offering a solution in the form of a conversation with another person is usually, not usually, but I would say that sometimes that's the only option, and it's the best way. That's
Yeah.
that's been my experience.
Yeah. Well, when I had experiences like that in the past, it was always like on jobs, and so I was not the one in charge, and so I could always like step away and be like, "This is the person you want to talk to, not me." Um, but now that I'm a business owner, it's like, "No, you have to have the difficult conversations with these people now. You don't get to like have somebody else deal with it." But it is true. I do have mentors and things that I can ask for help. So, yeah.
There are always options. Now, if you're a sole proprietor and you're not part of a bigger umbrella, that might not be an option.
Mhm.
And sometimes I've even had to do this, where I've talked to somebody and they just got upset that they just did not like what I had to say. And I'm not for everybody. I'm very, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I am bold and I don't really hold my tongue too much, and I say what's on my mind. And that type of person is not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Some people can't handle that. And so I have had to tell people, I'm sorry I upset you. That was not my intent. Um, maybe we're not a great fit to work with one another.
Mm-hmm.
And I apologize for that because I'd like to help you. And, as I said, being apologetic is always the best way to go, because even if it's not your fault, you take ownership.
Absolutely.
Because guess what? There are two parties in that conversation, and you're one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to know what to say. You just got to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I have to do that with my wife. It doesn't always work with her, but oftentimes I have foot and mouth disease when it comes to my wife. That's just kind of the way it is. I think that's the nature of man and woman in a house. But yes. Yeah. Well, I hope that helped. And
Yeah.
I would be interested. I know you got kicked off there. So if you have the opportunity to rewatch this video
Sure.
and you have any questions, then I would be interested in hearing those. Or if you want to have another conversation, sidebar conversation. And that's a good segue. If anyone who is listening has any questions or would like to make a comment, please say something in the comments, either below or wherever there is to place a comment next to this video, because it's on all my platforms. And, let's keep the conversation going. I think this is one of those chats that are underutilized. I think it's important to talk about irate conversations because it's very uncomfortable. It's very difficult. And sometimes people they start getting frustrated and then they do start arguing back. And that's like a last resort for them. And you don't have to do that. So it's important to talk about these things. In addition to that, I would say that Hannah's perspective is extremely important, but I want to learn from all of you in the audience as well. So please, if you don't want to pay for it after the 2 free calls, that's fine, but take advantage of the 2 free calls. Next week, it's going to be a little bit earlier. It's going to be 11 Central. I have another engagement that I have, but otherwise it's at noon Central every week, and 2 free calls. I would be happy to send you the link to participate, with the understanding that if you continue after those 2 free calls, that you would pay the $60 a month for a membership fee, or enroll in my first time leaders course. And then you have 6 months access to these calls for nothing. So that kind of wraps things up. Do you have any closing comments or anything that you would like to say, Hannah?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm good.
Well, hopefully you get a chance to watch it. I'm sorry your internet went
Yeah.
out. That happened to
I'm
me
sorry.
that happened to me the other day when I was recording a podcast.
Oh no.
So I have a lot of editing to do on that one, but that's okay. Yeah. So this is JJ Hardy, Victory Leadership Coaching. Hannah Prince is a financial coach, and she's a great one. So hit her up if you have any needs for insurance or financial investment type things, and she'll be able to square you away. Again, this is the Friday leadership training call, $60 a month, 2 free calls if you reach out to me. That's not going to last forever. So do it if you want access to it. And you all have a great and blessed weekend.